Here we go, look at me, back here again with another Mr. Video essay. Yeah, and today we're going to be talking about last year's anime and how it was kind of like, and then I'm going to tell you what my favorite one was that came out last year. Because, anime awards and stuff, all that things, it's a popular thing to talk about. Oh, what was my favorite thing to happen last year? Blah, 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 blah. The seasonal pipeline of shows was working the same way that it normally does, just pumping out content, and I watched plenty, but I finished 6. There are 6 shows that I watched all the way through, beginning to end, not all because I thought they were good, but because I thought they were interesting in some way. They piqued my interest, diddled my mind. So start to finish, I ended up watching Great Pretender, Dorahedoro, BStars, It Invaded, Smalley and the Forest Spirit, and Jujutsu Kaisen. Just before we get started with the video, if you just like, comment, and subscribe, all the YouTube junk, that would be greatly appreciated. Now, onward with the rest. Also, a special shout out to my homie Chris B, who let me use his music in the background. Got links to all the songs down in the description below. Make sure to check that out too. The Great Pretender is something that I had such strong feelings about. I made a video all about it all by itself, so feel free to go check that out. I'll put the little diddly thing up top. The themes were not fully followed through. It is a beautiful art piece, but I think that it is insulting the ideas that it presents. Next. Now, Dorahedoro is something I find a little bit more complicated to talk about because there are good aspects to it, but I think a lot of what messed it up for me was expectations. I expected it to be a lot more narratively interesting, a little bit more abstraction to it, a little bit more bonkers than it ended up being. First off, easy point to get off the list. Yes, the 3D can be a bit off-putting, but I don't think it is the worst. It's still, because the designs are so strong and just look so interesting and the world is really well, laid out and drawn, it still comes off very well. The action scenes themselves are probably where the 3D hurts the most because it's just so stiff and it doesn't really provide any impact for the action, but overall, it's not the biggest sticking point I have for it. My biggest issue with what's been presented so far, because I have not read the manga, and there might be more that goes into it later, is the world is kind of just left there. It is not further developed than the basic premise. The whole as a setting is very interesting, and it leaves you asking questions. Why are the sorcerers coming into here and experimenting on people? And why is there this specific layout of how it works? And you're not really given any answers why, and it isn't really presented in a way where it's going to be explained later. It's more presented in a way where it's just oh, this is just the setting that we wanted to say it with, and it's not developed enough in my opinion. And then in the later half of the series, when we go to visit the whole sorcerer's world, none of the moral repercussions of these people who just go and fuck around and experiment on people and take their limbs and turn them into monsters is dealt with. We are introduced to people as though they're people, which of course they are, but also before you start humanizing the monsters, you have to first explain why they do what they do. I don't know, maybe it comes off earlier, but I just found it so off-putting with the fantasy world building. But now that I've kind of given the series time to breathe, I've kind of realized that that's not what it's meant to be. It's more of just a slice of life with, hey, here's a cool setting just kind of thrown against the wall. It's not the most well-developed idea, but let's just have these wacky characters interact in this wild place where, people get experimented on, and here's this absurd situation. And I like absurdity sometimes, but also, I don't know, I like a bit of reason for my absurdity. There's no real theme that flows through it as to why it has to be that way, like in something like Fully Cooley, where, it's all about relationships and growing up in puberty and whatever. but also it doesn't have like established rules and logic to it, so it's and I was very mad when I ended up finishing it. But yeah, thinking back on it, I can see how strong the character writing is and how like interesting the interactions between these characters are. But I was just looking for something else when I first came to Dorahedoro, and that kind of goofed with my experience overall. And then like my last real problem with it, which probably wouldn't be a problem for most people, but like the ending with Nikaido is really upsetting. It's a really upsetting note to leave the story off on, because it comes off as like very rapey. It's uncomfortable. It is very uncomfortable just to like see this person's consent completely ignored, even though like the rules of it are okay. So I was just editing, and holy fuck, that scene is so fucking gross. And the fact that Noi and Shin are just watching that happen actively makes me like them less. That is the problem with fucking N as a character. The fact that they associate with N and then they're also watching that shit happen and don't even care, it sickens me to my stomach. That is gross. That is why I don't like that show. This is like I'm gonna continue with other reasons, but holy fuck, I don't know how. I guess I forgot about that, but fuck, that scene is disgusting. You're supposed to give consent, and then like also like the demons know, Nikaido's demon brother knows that Nikaido didn't give her consent to it, so he's helping a little bit, but also can't he just let that not happen? It's kind of a mindfuck. And all the scenes with Nikaido just having her whole will stripped from her is really fucking uncomfortable, and how she just has to submit to N, and it's painful. It's painful to watch. And then especially the pacing towards the end is very irritating. Someone can argue that it's for dramatic irony. We as the audience know that Nikaido is in trouble, but Kamen doesn't know. But also he does care about this person very much. So the fact that it ends, the episode before the big climax where it clashes with Nikaido is them having a baking contest, is really fucking frustrating. And especially because Nikaido has had her whole will stolen from her, and we as an audience know this, and we know she is suffering and in pain, and Kamen just doesn't care. It automatically like makes us dislike Kamen more. Or at least for me it did. I shouldn't impress that upon everyone that is watching the show, but for me it makes me a little very irritated with Kamen. So yeah, overall I give the show like a 6 out of 10. It's got really interesting art and designs, good music, definitely real cool music, but overall I think it fails in a lot of trying to keep its overarching plot, which it kind of gives the illusion of, but then it kind of just swipes it to the side whenever it feels like it should, or it feels like it wants to, not that it should. Now let's knock out the third of our Netflix trio of shows that I finished. Funny that I managed to get through 3 Netflix shows this year. Netflix, honestly, like, as far as being interesting, they have chosen a lot of good properties for this year. A lot better than they have in the past. Because I've seen, people see fucking Netflix's collection of shit, and it's pretty fucking whack. It's either a lot of normie shit, or it's CGI stuff that just doesn't work and it comes off as clunky. Their originals can be really just comedically bad. Real tangent I'm going on here, but like when they first started producing original animation, fucking Ajin was something that looked like fucking hot garbage, and it's the source material itself is very mid. It's very basic with its ideas of, oh, what makes a human, blah blah blah, and it goes very ankle deep. I do think that they have definitely improved their CGI. I wish they wouldn't only use CGI with their projects. I get their big corporation and their bottom line, and they have to make as much money as possible, so CGI is cheaper, but it can still look pretty ugly. I really wish Dorahedoro, if it was all 2D animated, it would be so fucking dope. But yeah, that is what it is. But yeah, last of our Netflix shows, BStars. BStars I'm a little bit more positive about. Off the bat, I knew it was a very character-focused show. That is the whole thing. There is still in the back of my mind the association with Zootopia, but there's a lot more interesting characters in here, and they don't play as much into the racism allegory, which doesn't make sense. Zootopia is stupid. Don't let your kids watch it. I do kind of find it a little bit hard to relate Legoshi's struggles as a predator and having these urges and kind of translating that specifically to what would that be. But in general, just as I'm going through the shows, just focusing on him, it's still very interesting to just keep my mind running and kind of put myself in this headspace with Legoshi. I'm gonna pronounce that 10 different ways. Legoshi. It's I'm sorry. Like I was saying earlier, the CGI in here is very artfully used. I think this is honestly probably the best CGI show that has come out from Netflix. I think the whole thing kind of melds together because you have these different, not quite human animations of things. I think it's a good show. It doesn't well me up with emotion, but I think it is well written and it has good characters. Haru is amazing. This concept of a person who's constantly seen as prey and as weak, and so she uses sex to take that power back, and we see that throughout the series as she goes up to these imposing figures, and she just has this confidence whenever she's doing some sort of sexual act, and then kind of that breaking down specifically with Legoshi, and I love Haru. Haru is amazing. The writing for her is impeccable. Then there's Louis, who's just always on. He's always putting on a performance, trying to be something that he's not, trying to be a predator and exude this strength that he doesn't have, but when he needs to be strong, he can't do anything, and he's always in his head just this boy who can be fed to predators at any time, and it's captured so well in the fucking performances. The dub does such a fucking good job. BStars is genuinely really good. It's just not something that gets me emotional like my favorite thing this season. It's a good thing that came out. This year wasn't all bad for anime. It was still a really rough fucking time, but I think BStars is the only thing from this year other than my favorite thing, which I would recommend as something any other year. Next, I'm gonna talk about probably the most mid thing that I watched this year, and that's It Invaded. And mid is exactly how you can fucking describe this. It follows through the whole way as being a clone of Psycho Pass, but being a lot more weird and muddy with what it's trying to do and what it's trying to say, with a lot weaker characters. Definitely continues the trend this year of having an amazing soundtrack. This year has had so many shows with fucking banging soundtracks with unique flavors to them, despite the shows themselves being very mid. Fucking Id, amazing. It has this dubstep to it and modern electric sounds and stuff, and good insert songs, especially at the end. I love that insert song in the last episode. Great Pretender, fun jazzy soundtrack. Azoken really captures it. It really enhances what it's trying to do, even though I didn't finish the show, as a testament to Miyazaki's type animation and designing worlds. Fucking BStars with its popping, the fucking OP on BStars is a banger. Dorahedoro with its rock opera type music and shit. Fucking BNA, the odd man out on this list for being a Netflix original that I didn't watch this year, because it's so boring and just it's trying to do the Zootopia thing again with racism allegories, with an unlikable main character, and but the soundtrack is so amazing. That ED, oh my god, I literally play that all the time just to vibe. It's such a nice song to just listen to. But yeah, it is very mid. Like, you can understand where it's going with its characters, but it doesn't really execute on it well. It tells you what it is, but doesn't show you it in like an accurate arc where it like captures your emotions. And the plot is so like weird and convoluted. These murder particles, and like how fucking Narisugu can just tell people what their problem and trauma is, and then make them kill themselves is so fucking weird and goofy, but it's like a significant plot point. Oh, I can get in your head, and I can talk you into killing yourself. And the dude with the fucking hole in his head, yes, the hole in my head made me think clearer. And then the second episode, there ends up being another person with a hole in their head, and it's bizarre. And then it really just goes off the rails, because it's like the captain, who you have no idea and you've had no chance of getting to know them, so this plot twist means nothing. He's actually the serial killer who's making the serial killers. It's definitely him, and we're like, no, it isn't. And it like has no weight to it, and it's just like goofy. And then he's like, yes, now I have to go through the fucking field of psychic powers to go kill this girl, and it's muddy. It's just a muddy story with a really cool soundtrack and a couple good episodes. Narisugu's relationship with his family and what happened, like the tragedy of it, getting to know what that finally is pretty compelling, and you're like, wow, that's fucked up when you like fucking finally hear about it. But overall, just 5 out of 10. So mid. You can skip out on it. It's not gonna hurt you. Ooh, only 2 more shows. I wonder which one could possibly be my favorite. Well, it's not Jujutsu Kaisen. Jujutsu Kaisen is cool. It's got dope animation. It's wonderful. It's fun, like dumb shonen watch. I caught up on the entire manga this year because of the anime, watching it, and yeah, I really enjoy the manga, and I don't know, the animation is good, but I think there's something that's lost in not looking at Gege's fucking paneling, because I have so many fucking saved panels that like just go so immensely hard with the page turns and stuff. If you go watch Super Eye Patch Wolf's video on like Junji Ito and like the art of like the page turn and how that makes horror enhanced, I think there is a lot of that with a lot of like these emotional moments where you get to pause with Jujutsu Kaisen while reading it, and there's just these little moments. And yeah, Gege is just so strong with his paneling that it's a little bit of a tragedy that more people aren't going to see that, because so many people are gonna be watching the anime, and then once the season is over, wait for the next season of anime. But I'll just give it a try if you can. But yeah, not to say that the story itself isn't good. It also hasn't really reached the best it can be. It's very much like it's in its early Naruto stages, and I think the Naruto comparison is very apt because of how Jujutsu Kaisen is kind of structured. You have like the 3 protagonists, and Gojo is very clearly a reference to Kakashi with his whole covering eyes thing, and teacher, blah blah blah, the relationship with them. I think the characters are a lot more well written in Jujutsu Kaisen than they are in Naruto, and hopefully it ends up being a better series. I think already there's an argument to make that Jujutsu Kaisen is already better than Naruto, but also we gotta see how this story ends up coming to a conclusion, because we know that the fucking Naruto fumbled its bag towards the end, so you know. But the series as a whole, it's hard to talk about because I'm so like caught up on current manga events, but just the whole setup for Yuji, and Yuji as a character being, he's very clearly the evolution of the quote dumb protagonist, where, you know, he can be a little bit thick-headed, but he's got good battle sense and all that, and he still knows how fucking people work and how to deal with people and has general emotional intelligence where it's not gonna be like totally played for laughs. And it's very easy to like Yuji off the bat, especially when you see that first time when he's willing to sacrifice himself for Fushiguro despite all like the regrets that he has. He doesn't know that he's gonna be coming back. He doesn't know he's the protagonist of the series, but he does it anyways. It's a good show, a good watch, good introduction and getting me into the manga, but not my favorite of this year. Now, I can already imagine the fucking comments wilding about me fucking choosing Somali and the Forest Spirit as my favorite anime of this year. And I think that it makes sense. Bro, you shouldn't be choosing this shit over fucking Jujutsu Kaisen. Jujutsu Kaisen is such a work of art. BStars, too, is like really good. But I think Somali and the Forest Spirit, just for me in particular, this is super fucking subjective. But that ride that I went on with Somali and the Forest Spirit was something I was just super down for, and it gave me the most visceral cry I've had in like fucking like, I don't know, like 3 years or something. It is the hardest I've cried in so long while watching an anime. Over fucking like my rewatches of A Silent Voice. Somali and the Forest Spirit is amazing, and I think it's really good how it kind of twists a lot of the failings of its genre. Because so many shows have that whole thing where it's like, oh, look, this little girl is cute, and then weird fucking pedophiles will be like, yeah, look, it's Senko-san. Look, he's getting to pet her tail. This is so wholesome. And it's so fucking cringe. When this is genuinely a good show about the relationship between a father and a daughter, and an adopted father and daughter, and like just the ride towards the ending, when I get to that last episode, it has been built up for me so much that now I can just go watch that episode and hear fucking the speech by Somali, and it's just something that fucking hits every time. I am a sucker for when things can emotionally resonate for me. That will make a show so much specialer than being well animated or being cool with cool character designs. It has this good structure for introducing you to the world, and especially the first episode serves really well as just introducing you to how this world is very interesting and it can be very fun, but there's this malevolence below that we just don't understand because no one thinks that Somali is a human, and we're like, oh, what happened to the humans? And we have this going through our heads the whole time we're through the series, and it's this little thing that can drive the plot and gets you interested in it all the way through. And while that's happening, it's slowly building you up on the characters and the characters' relationships, mostly Somali and the Golem, but also as they meet other characters. We have our little mini arcs at the beginning. The settings are like so cool, and we get to explore a different one each episode, so things don't really get stale. And it's just this traveling journey where each episode we get to learn more about the world, and eventually we get to learn more about humans and where they could be and what happened to them. And I don't want to completely spoil everything that's happened, because I know a lot of people probably skipped out on this because it looks like just cute girl doing cute shit, and look, oh, there's Golem, haha, he's a robot and he learns to love, but it feels like so much more than that. And to get to go on that journey is something I don't want to rob people of. So yeah, that's my favorite anime this year. Somali and the Forest Spirit. It made me cry like a little bitch. Thanks for taking the time to watch this if you did, especially get into the outro. Please like, comment, tell me that I'm wrong and stupid for not picking BStars or not picking Jujutsu Kaisen, or you can tell me again, like so many people have told me in the Great Pretender comment section, that I need to watch the second half of the season to understand it, or that my opinion is wrong. long. I'm just vibing. I enjoy the engagement. Please subscribe for more. Things got a little spicy for me, so that's why I kind of went off schedule, but I'm going to try to keep that schedule from here on out and try to do kind of bi-weekly videos. So yeah, I hope that you will pay attention to whatever I decide to make next. Good vibes to you. I will see you. Toodles.